2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7, 8, 8, 9, 9, 10, 10. You're late.
Now listen here, I'm sorry, okay? I was busy.
Very well.
I was busy, alright?
It's your turn to go first.
Oh. Okay.
You have no idea how to play this game, do you?
Go fish. What?
So if you're here, you probably want to play Kingdom Hearts Rechain of Memories, but you might have heard some pretty unflattering things about it. But don't worry though, because I've got your back. This game has a pretty unique combat system, which can be pretty fun, but unfortunately it's not really explained all that well to the player, which leads to some people being confused and frustrated. This is a card game, which means that you'll need to assemble a deck of cards to use against the Heartless. In order to do this, you need to acquire cards, which can be done a few ways. The first is as simple as hitting stuff. Anything you walk up to in the field that has a yellow lock-on on it can be hit for the possibility of it dropping HP orbs, Moogle points, which are the currency of this game, or a card. There are also these braziers in the Olympus Coliseum and Hollow Bastion that have to be hit first to put out, and then jumped on afterwards in order to make them drop things. The other way of gaining cards is by using one of two different kinds of blue rune cards. In order to progress through the game, you'll be using cards called rune cards to open doors and create rooms. Rune cards are obtained after every battle and are separated into 4 different types. There are red cards, which affect the kind of enemies found in that room, green cards, which normally give you a passive buff for the duration of your stay in the room, blue cards, which usually give you free stuff, and key cards, which consist of the cards necessary to progress the story, and the super secret treasure cards called key to rewards that can be used once per floor. In order to gain cards most efficiently, you're going to want to use a treasure room and then a Moogle room, which contains a shop, in that order. The reason for this is because in every world, by opening your first treasure room, you get that world's specific treasure. You'll want to open the treasure room first because the Calm Bounty treasure room has no enemies and free things to hit, which gives you the opportunity to get more Moogle points to later use in the Moogle rooms. And there's also the fact that once you earn a world-specific treasure, then you can obtain that card in the shop. One of the least explained things in the entire game has got to be premium cards. Sometimes, when you receive a card, it'll be a golden number instead of a usual white one. This means that you've just received a premium card. Sounds good, right? Well, sometimes it is and sometimes it's not. As you level up, one of the optional rewards that you might get is to increase your CP, which stands for card points. In order to equip cards to your deck, it has to be under your deck's CP requirement. Premium cards cost less CP to equip to your deck, but they can only be used once per battle. As a result, they are most useful in starting slates. Slates are the special moves of this game. You learn slates as you level up or open certain treasure rooms. They are performed by using up to 3 of your cards at once instead of 1 at a time. The value of your slate is the sum of all the cards you use, so it can be really strong, but you lose the first card that you selected for the rest of the fight. And this is why it's useful to have premium cards as the first card in your slate, since you were going to lose them anyway. Another type of card found in the game are enemy cards. Enemy cards are obtained nearly every time you beat a boss and have a low chance to drop from the last enemy you defeat in any Heartless encounter. These cards typically have a pretty high CP cost but grant you some useful abilities such as HP regen or the ability to not have your attacks cancelled out by enemy cards for a certain amount of time. In order to use these cards after you've equipped them, you have to press either the touchpad or select button, depending on what system you're playing on, to move to the enemy card list instead of your normal deck. It's easy to forget about these cards because you have to press a button to move to them, but maybe don't forget about them because they can be super useful. The map can be opened using the touchpad or select button while you're out of combat. This is useful because it shows the layout of the floor you're on, as well as the card requirements for upcoming doors. Speaking of card requirements, remember how I said that you're making the rooms as you progress through the floor? Something a lot of people don't realize about this game is that what you're also doing is dictating the card requirements for adjacent rooms when you create a room. With the exception of story rooms, the card requirements for a given door will always be whatever you used on the previous door, plus 1. Knowing this can help you plan ahead and use your 9s to set the requirement for the next floor to the minimum of 0 if you want to hang on to your higher cards for later. Even if you already made a room, you can reset it and change the room type by walking up to the already open door and pressing triangle. This can be useful for grinding or if you run out of rooms but need to create a save point, move a room, or treasure room. One of the key cards we talked about earlier were the key to rewards. You can use a key of rewards card once per world to get that world's secret treasure. However, something the game doesn't tell you is that all versions of Rechain of Memories that come on the same collection as 358 over 2 days also have bonus cards that are only unlockable after you watch the 358 over 2 days cutscenes. This can be a problem because the recommended playthrough order of the series has Days as the 4th game that you will visit and Rechain of Memories as the 2nd. If you're going to go through the series for the first time, in order to get around having to collect every key to rewards twice from a random drop that only drops after you reach floor 7, I would suggest turning on the Days movie and either not being in the room while it plays or just turning off your screen so that you get credit for watching it without spoiling yourself on the plot. This way you can collect both cards in the room to rewards at the same time and save a lot of time without spoiling the future of the series. That's about it for things that need explaining, but I figure I might as well end off the video with a couple of tips and tricks that might also help you out. After you've used all your cards, then you'll have to reload them, which requires you to stand still for a short amount of time. In order to make this safer, I suggest making the last slate you use stop gun, so that you freeze all the enemies in place while you're reloading. I would also suggest making different decks for bosses and mob fights, because they require vastly different strategies and different card combinations. One good thing about the layout of this game is that you can just about tell when you're about to fight a boss, because most worlds follow the same structure and pattern. Make sure you remember to use your enemy cards, especially Oogie Boogie for the free heals, and you'll come through fine. If the card system annoys you too much, then you can get around it by making a deck consisting entirely of 9s and treating it like you're playing Kingdom Hearts 1 again. If you do decide to do this, you'll only have to worry about the enemies using a 9 or a 0, or bosses using slates. If you put in a little bit of effort and figure out the combat system, Rechain of Memories is pretty inventive, strategic, and it isn't all that bad, so I hope you'll give it a shot.
And Liam, you put down a card that's higher than my card, and that's how you win.
Yo, dude, that's sick.